So, Juno got a lot of flack, didn't it? Yeah, I mean, it ended up being nominated for 4 Academy Awards, winning one for Best Screenplay, and it topped many Best of the Year lists by a few film critics. And its acclaim was so widespread that it ended up being a little bit blamed for Bristol Palin's teen pregnancy. It was a weird time. Roger Ebert even named it his favorite film of 2007, and many critics praised it for its witty dialogue, heart, and tweets. For the uninformed, twee is a term referring to a subgenre of indie pop music. It's also an adjective that describes something excessively quaint, pretty, or sentimental, but it's most often used to refer to the hipster aesthetics of a film, down to its music, characters, and cinematography. Examples include Zooey Deschanel in Anything, Away We Go, Submarine, and Wes Anderson's entire filmography. But obviously not everyone felt the same way. David Edelstein, a film reviewer for New York Magazine, wrote the movie and its titular character off as desperate to be cool. She's a screwball heroine, but it's the writer Diablo Cody and director Jason Reitman who have screws loose. Or maybe they're just desperate to make their film a Chick Rushmore or Garden State, a movie that confers hipness on teens. Then there was Jem Derogatis, a journalist and self-proclaimed old-school feminist who had a major bone to pick with the music and the dialogue and even the people who made the movie happen. Here are a few quotes from his review, first published in January of 2008. The notion that kids, even smart and sarcastic ones, talk like Juno is a lie only 30-something and 50-something movie critics could buy. Are we really supposed to believe that a girl as intelligent and self-empowered as Juno, when determining the time to lose her virginity, neglects to bring birth control? He began his review titled, "Get Real, Juno, You're a Phony," with a bit of backstory initially shared by the film's director. A story about how the Juno soundtrack was pieced together by Ellen Page, who, when asked what kind of music she thought Juno would like, answered with The Moldy Peaches, an indie duo comprised of Adam Green and Kimya Dawson. And I'll be honest, as I read Derogatis' review, I couldn't tell really if he was more pissed off that Juno spoke the way that she did, or that she listened to Kimya Dawson. Here is a 29-year-old screenwriter and a 30-year-old director brainstorming with a nearly 21-year-old actress and deciding that the intentionally primitive and infantile sounds recorded by 35-year-old musician Kimya Dawson epitomizes the music that kids today really listen to. While I could go through these rhetorics and ask my own questions, I won't because this review is fucking 12 years old and Roger Ebert already beat me to it. An excerpt from a blog post Roger Ebert made in response to Derogatis. Why do people continue to expect every film they see to be a flawless reflection of reality when no film, not even a documentary, could ever accomplish such a feat? And then, in response to his beef with Kimya Dawson, again, Derogatis is right. The movie should have been written, directed, and scored by 16-year-olds. Someone easily could have found the funding for them, but to call Kimya Dawson primitive and infantile when he complains that the movie uses the wrong track from Sonic Youth seems like indigestion. Roast him, Robert. It isn't that Juno is in any way, shape, or form absolved of critique. It's only that the echo chamber of complaints that the titular character was too snarky or too smart or her music taste too twee had little to do with the film's mechanics. It became more about how Diablo Cody had the gall to write a teenage girl the way that she did. Forget that movie dialogue is never realistic and never has been realistic. Let's go on and on about how infuriating it is that teenagers don't talk like that. It's a movie, dude. Anything can happen. And I don't know, but when you call the dialogue witty and clever and then in the same article talk about how it's inaccurate for teenage girls to talk that way, then you're kind of just telling on yourself, aren't you? Despite the backlash and the backlash to the backlash, Juno was still critically acclaimed. Diablo Cody still had an Oscar, and in Hollywood that meant she had the chance to write whatever the hell she wanted. As a longtime horror fan who grew up in her Chicago neighborhood watching the likes of The Lost Boys and Ghoulies and Carrie, Cody was more than ready to write a horror film, and she was passionate about this one. After reflecting on the things that scared her the most, she decided to write a story about high school, and more specifically, the mean girls who run them.
I thought to myself, all right, I want to write something that genuinely scares me. What do I find scary? I thought zombies, yeah, kind of. Ghosts, I guess, but teenage girls. Scary.
Citing that her love for horror movies might have stemmed from her love of the final girl, Cody knew she wanted to write a film where she could create her own final girl, and more importantly, show her standing off against a female villain. She also knew she wanted the story to be about female empowerment, the complexity of female friendships, and the crazy emotions that come with being a teenage girl. She found the perfect director in Kusama, Resident Genius, and the two of them embarked on the journey to make a feminist horror film. The script was funny, but it was also weird, and it kind of genre hopped a little bit, so for a while it just made rounds around Hollywood without ever being picked up for production. Eventually, Diablo was able to sell the project to Fox Atomic, a distributor branch of 20th Century Fox. I wrote it for girls. I think the fact that we were a female creative team gave us permission to make observations about some of the more toxic aspects of female friendships. The toxic friendship depicted in the film is one of best friends Jennifer and Needy. The film is about their bond, the strength of it, and its almost parasitic nature, and what happens after a botched sacrifice leaves Jennifer possessed by a demon and transformed into a succubus. The movie had all the quick-witted dialogue and one-liners Cody became known for with Juno. It also had projectile vomit, let's face it, all the good horror movies do, sacrifices to Satan, psychic visions, levitating, heart-eating. It's pretty cool. She really did go all out, and the result is nice. The concept of the young woman turned monstrous as a metaphor for coming of age is no stranger to the horror genre. We've seen takes like this before in Carrie, a film that literally starts with the main character getting her period for the first time, and Ginger Snaps. What made Jennifer's body different from the aforementioned films was not only the fact that it was a story about young women told by women, but the expertise with which certain themes were handled. Back when the idea was just beginning, there was only one thing everyone involved knew for sure. Megan Fox was the person for the role, and though they had considered other actresses, mainly just in case Megan said no, it was always her.
How did I get involved in this movie? What was it about me that made you think that I could play a psychopath that devours boys?
Do you know what it was? I think, and this is a compliment,
Okay.
you have mystique.
They rounded out the rest of the cast with Amanda Seyfried, Johnny Simmons, Adam Brody, and a little J.K. Simmons as a treat. Everyone involved knew what kind of film they were making, and they were proud of it. It was funny, a little dark, a little weird. It was, in the words of Kusama, a fairy tale gone psycho. And in the end, when filming was wrapped, most involved were happy with what they made. Then it was released in theaters and torn to shreds. Megan's teen fanboys should have their satisfied fill, especially those who crave babes with bite. If you're in search for a way to oogle Megan Fox's body, there are a lot better ways to do it than subjecting yourself to this. We've seen episodes of Supernatural that are scarier. Megan Fox has a no nudity clause in her contract. What? I looked for the full review of that last one, but it seems like there's no actual copy of the full review online, apart from this excerpt. But I'm not sure I even have to read the whole thing because this excerpt pretty much sums up everything wrong, not with Jennifer's body, but with how it was marketed. The reviews quoted have one thing in common, and that is how they sexualize Megan Fox. Now, you're probably shaking your head thinking of that scene in Transformers, the scene where most audiences were introduced to her for the first time. Not wise people who recognize Confessions of a Teenage Drama Queen as their Lord and Savior. You're thinking of the scene where she's checking a car engine and you're thinking, no, Megan Fox has always been sexualized. And you'd be right. From the moment Transformers hit theaters, from the moment that this scene played on silver screens, it sealed Hollywood's perception of Megan Fox as a sex pot. Most reviews for Jennifer's body at some point or another echoed this sentiment. Megan Fox is pretty, but that's all. Megan Fox's legion of fanboys will be pleased to see her practically seducing them through their television screens. It didn't seem to matter that the role of Jennifer, the arc of her character in the film, almost seemed to poke fun at Megan's status as a sex symbol. Or that the movie about seducing men to feast on their intestines probably wouldn't interest the men who, just wanted to be seduced and, not eaten, which, I feel like most men don't want to be eaten like that. What the marketing team in charge of the ad campaign saw when they looked at the film was that Megan Fox was sexy, so they marketed it to the same group of adolescent males who were probably sprung by that one scene in Transformers.
Studio had a very strong, unshakable belief that this movie needed to be marketed to young men, specifically.
I wrote it for girls.
The demographic Cody and Kusama had in mind when making the film was completely left out of the conversation, and I believe a good amount of that demographic saw the trailers and the posters for Jennifer's Body and probably thought, well, that's obviously not for me. Kusama stated later that she felt an outright hostility toward the young female audience that she and Cody had made the film for. It got so bad that Kusama had to practically beg the team not to go with the idea of having Megan Fox do a live chat on a porn site. But you can understand why Cody and Kusama, having had experiences like that, having to beg an exec team not to exploit their lead actress, would lead them to wonder whether anyone on the ad campaign even watched the movie to begin with.
What was surprising was I felt like they didn't actually watch the movie. Like, how could they review it the way that they did after having watched the movie? I do feel like obviously it was mismarketed.
As they saw the advertisements, as they received emails like, Jennifer sexy, she's still your boyfriend, they both knew, long before the box office numbers and the harsh reviews, that the movie that they had put all this passion and care into was in big trouble. I kept sort of reminding everybody, guys, we can't market this movie to boys and then have them go to the theater expecting one thing and then seeing Megan Fox not really take off her clothes but rip a guy's intestines out and eat them. And when you think about it, there's no reason for the marketing to have been shaped this way. Like, alright, let's follow the logic of the ad campaign with the movie that Jennifer's Body is always compared to. Mean Girls is clearly a movie made for teenaged girls. For teenage girls who worry about fitting in and who have to deal with the social hierarchies of high school, but most importantly, about teenage girls and the friendships they make. At its core, Mean Girls is an observation of female friendships and the sometimes parasitic nature they can have. Does that sound familiar? From the outset, I always felt like this is a horror movie about toxic friendships between girls. So, we can establish that Mean Girls and Jennifer's Body have very similar themes on femininity and friendships and all that jazz. We can establish that both were made for teenage girls, but how was Mean Girls marketed? The trailer is comedic, flashy, and even has a backing track of Beyoncé's Naughty Girl. It was pop, it was pink, and there was no mistaking what demographic the movie was trying to appeal to. They even made a point of including Katie's line,
"Being with the plastics was like leaving the actual world and entering girl world."
And what was the end result? Mean Girls topped the box office, surpassing Man on Fire and 13 Going on 30. And when the demographics came in, guess what? Over 75% of the audience at those theaters were women, and 50% of them were under the age of 18. Everyone saw this movie, and everyone loved this movie, and everyone still loves it now, but the point is that the demographic the film was written for, the demographic that the book it was based on was written for, they weren't shut out. In comparison, Jennifer's Body had a trailer that focused on, Jennifer's body. Close-ups of Megan unzipping her shirt, opening with her swimming nude in a lake, standing in front of a mirror wearing only her underwear. It also included the scene that Megan Fox, Kusama, and Cody all point to as being the most misunderstood. Toward the end of the film, Jennifer and Needy share a kiss. This kiss was in all the TV spots, in all the trailers, always spliced in, and although even Amanda Seyfried worried that the scene was just to bait an audience, it always had a different meaning. What Diablo Cody really wanted to hone in on was how Needy, to some degree, is in love with Jennifer. And it's not like this kiss is the only scene that shows that. There's a build-up to it. In the beginning, when Jennifer and Needy wave at each other during a pep rally, Needy's told that she's
Totally lesbian gay. What? She's my best friend.
In the inciting incident at the bar, Jennifer and Needy hold hands and everything around them slows down. Needy looks at Jennifer with just complete adoration in her eyes. It was intended to be something profound and meaningful, because I know when I was a teenage girl, the friendships that I had with other girls were almost romantic. They were so intense. But again, none of that mattered. Girls kissing equals sexy. Megan Fox equals sexy. Jennifer's Body equals made for teenaged boys. At least that was the rhetoric ubiquitous in the reviews. If Mean Girls was marketed the same way that Jennifer's Body was, we would likely have all the trappings declaring, hear ye, heterosexual adolescent men, come from yonder to watch our film that is totally about hot girls being hot and having sex. There's no denying that every woman in the Mean Girls cast is mad hot, so the marketing team would think, yes, this is how we get them. The problem is that teenage boys aren't that fucking dumb. No one is that fucking dumb. If they were, and this kind of logic worked, then box office bomb sex comedy movies like Eurotrip and Sex Drive would have made so much more money than they did. And to be clear, it's not a problem that the movie was marketed toward teenaged boys. I have plenty of guy friends who fucking adore this movie. The problem is, A, it was marketed with blatant lies. Come see this movie, see Megan Strip, instead of being transparent about the film's themes. And as Diablo Cody would later say, the marketing team was actively disappointing their audience. Then, problem B, the marketing wasn't just targeted toward teenaged boys, but it was deliberately done at the exclusion of teenaged girls.
The demographic the fucking writer wrote the fucking movie for, fuck.
This obviously doesn't mean every person outside of the film's target demographic won't enjoy it. I mean, shit, dude, Roger Ebert loved it, and at the time he was 67 years old. People outside a target demographic can still enjoy the hell out of a good movie. It's the act of excluding an audience and lying to another one that sucks the most. Few reviewers understood what it was that the movie was conveying about friendships. Its depiction of the ways women like Needy are willing to compromise themselves to indulge an ultimately less secure friend is spot on. Cody has a few nice points to make out about the frenemy dynamic of some girl-girl relationships, the drama, the connection, the power plays, the excitement. But the positivity got lost in the bashing, and critics took joy in watching what looked like the downfall of Diablo Cody. Jennifer's Body failed commercially and critically, but its failure was worsened by both the hostility toward Fox and Cody and the perception the industry had of them.
Did you feel like you were being savaged by critics personally? Or you felt like other people in the industry were coming after you? Or where did you feel the attack was coming for you during that process?
I felt like people in the industry definitely were coming for me.
Diablo Cody was seen as a one-trick pony whose dialogue rubbed people the wrong way. Critics pointed to lines in Juno like,
"That ain't no Etch-a-Sketch. This is one doodle that can't be undid, Holmes Gillett."
And the way she wrote teenage girls so differently as sole evidence of her being a bad writer. Ironically, with Jennifer's Body, critics then complained that she wrote teenage girls too stereotypically. Not sure what's stereotypical about an entrail-eating cheerleader, but do you? Megan Fox's performance in Michael Bay movies about robots was pointed toward as evidence of her being a sexy, terrible actress and nothing more. And that's all anyone saw when they watched this movie. Instead of building an ad campaign for the film as it was, the film's themes were ignored in favor of hypersexualizing Megan Fox. At the time of its release, Jennifer's Body only had a handful of positive reviews, but as the years passed, something shifted. More people were seeing the film, more importantly, the people the film was meant for. Girls who had been turned off by the marketing found it and saw it for what it was. Girls who had been too young to see it upon its release grew up and watched it and resonated with its themes. When the decision was made to capitalize on Megan Fox's sex appeal and bait the teen male audience eager to see her take her top off, it wasn't just the straight teen girls who were turned away from the film, it was gay teens all around. In the years since the theatrical release, a lot of the reappraisal Jennifer's Body has received has been not just from straight young women, but from just young gay people all over the fucking world. People who have been able to identify and appreciate its themes. There aren't a fuck ton of movies that have bisexual protagonists, and there were definitely fewer in 2009. It isn't like we had terrible movies pre-2009. I mean, there was Frida, there was Chasing Amy, and like 1 year later we got Nina Sayers' gay ass in Black Swan, so that was nice. But at the time, 2009 cinema, especially Hollywood production cinema, was a stranger to gay audiences, and no one had any idea how to promote that. Hell, they couldn't even tell Needy's kiss with Jennifer wasn't a fetishizing moment for straight guys, but an intense exploration of Needy's feelings for Jennifer, so I don't know why I'm talking like I expected more of them. It wasn't until after the backlash and after it all died down that the movie was rediscovered, and now it's as big in LGBT communities as Rocky Horror, But I'm a Cheerleader, and Hedwig and the Angry Inch. Since 2009, Jennifer's Body has come to be considered a cult classic, a thing that Megan Fox appreciates but slightly disagrees with.
Can it even be considered a cult following at this point? I feel like it's broken through where it's just a lot of people are obsessed with this movie.
Every year, it seems that appreciation for the movie and for Megan Fox doubles, triples, quadruples. Articles like BuzzFeed's "You Probably Owe Jennifer's Body an Apology," Vice's "Jennifer's Body Would Kill Today," and the onslaught of praise from young adults are a testament to this. Jennifer's Body was always a good movie. Its themes haven't changed. Its story hasn't changed. The people who appreciate it now most likely would have appreciated it then, and a few did. It's nice to imagine a scenario where the film wasn't distributed by Fox Atomic, and where actual effort was put into marketing it toward the right demographic. It's nice to imagine a scenario where Megan Fox wasn't hated simply for existing, or devalued on a daily basis. But this version of the story that ends with both Jennifer's Body and Megan Fox getting their flowers, well, that's nice too, and way overdue.
I mean, I loved it. It's my favorite thing I've ever done.
I did not know that, and I'm happy to hear it.
Really?
Yeah.
What would you think my favorite thing would be that I've done? Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?